CEO denied withdrawal at her own bank. She makes them regret it instantly. Victoria Reeves smoothed the lapel of her navy Armani suit as she strode through the gleaming marble lobby of Meridian Financial's flagship branch. The bank's distinctive blue and silver logo, her logo, the one she designed herself 12 years ago, glowed above the teller stations. As CEO of the fastest-growing financial institution in the Northeast, she rarely handled personal transactions herself, but today was different. Her mother's 70th birthday gift required cash, something special and untraceable for the antique dealer who had finally located the rare music box from her childhood. Before I go on, I would really appreciate it if you give this video a like, click the subscribe button down below. It would really encourage me to create more videos for you. Thank you so much. Alright, let's continue. The young teller's eyes widened slightly as Victoria approached, but he maintained his professional demeanor. Good afternoon, how can I assist you today? Victoria smiled politely and slid her ID and platinum card across the counter, requesting a withdrawal of $25,000. The teller examined her credentials, his expression shifting from neutral to uncertain as he glanced at his computer screen. I'm sorry, Ms. Reeves, but there seems to be an issue with this transaction. One moment while I get my manager. Before Victoria could respond, he disappeared behind the frosted glass door marked private banking. Through the translucent barrier, she could see animated gesturing, the teller pointing repeatedly at his screen, while speaking to someone just out of view. Moments later, a man Victoria didn't recognize emerged. His charcoal suit was expensive but didn't quite fit his frame, as if he'd purchased it to project an image rather than for comfort. The gold name badge read Derek Wilson, branch manager. His practiced smile didn't reach his eyes as he approached. Ms. Reeves, I understand you're attempting a significant cash withdrawal today. His tone carried a hint of condescension that made Victoria's spine stiffen. I'm afraid we'll need additional verification for this transaction. There's been some irregular activity flagged on this account. Victoria maintained her composure, though she felt her cheeks warming. Irregular activity? I'm quite certain there isn't. I'm the CEO of Meridian Financial Group. She reached for her business card case, but Derek held up his hand, stopping her. Yes, well, anyone could claim that, couldn't they? His smile widened, revealing two perfect veneers. I've been manager here for 3 weeks, and I haven't seen you before. Bank policy requires additional verification for transactions of this size, especially when there are discrepancies. Victoria noticed several customers turning to stare, whispering behind their hands. The calculated public humiliation became clear. This wasn't about bank policy. What discrepancies are you referring to exactly? Her voice remained level, though ice had crept into her tone. Derek's eyes flickered toward her designer handbag, her tailored suit, her perfectly manicured nails, making assumptions with each sweep of his gaze. Let's just say your profile doesn't match our typical high-value client. Perhaps you could return with additional documentation? A letter from your employer, perhaps. The smirk playing at the corner of his mouth told Victoria everything she needed to know. 12 years building this institution from a struggling local bank to a financial powerhouse. 12 years of fighting to be taken seriously in boardrooms full of men. 12 years of proving herself over and over again. And now this. Something in his demeanor struck Victoria as familiar, triggering an instinct honed through countless corporate battles. This wasn't random. This was deliberate. Victoria didn't raise her voice. She didn't cause a scene. Instead, she retrieved her ID and card with steady hands, tucking them into her wallet with deliberate precision. I understand completely, Mr. Wilson. His smug satisfaction was almost palpable as he believed he'd won their brief power struggle. As she turned to leave, Victoria removed her phone from her jacket pocket. She made a single call, her eyes never leaving Derek's face. Janet, it's Victoria. Run a full background check on a Derek Wilson, newly appointed manager at our downtown branch, and call an emergency meeting of the security and compliance team. She paused, watching Derek's expression shift from triumph to uncertainty. Yes, immediately. And Janet? Pull the surveillance footage from the lobby for the past 20 minutes. I believe we have a situation that requires my personal attention. The Meridian Financial executive boardroom fell silent as Victoria concluded her account of what had happened at the downtown branch. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city skyline, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the polished mahogany table where her 5 most trusted executives sat, expressions ranging from shock to barely contained fury. He didn't recognize you? The CEO of the company he works for? Marcus Chun, her CFO of 10 years, shook his head in disbelief. That's not just incompetence, Victoria. That's deliberate. The others murmured in agreement, but Victoria raised a hand, quieting them as Janet entered with a sleek black folder. The background check on Derek Wilson, Janet said, placing it before Victoria. And this just came in from IT. She slid across a tablet, displaying an email chain. Victoria scanned both documents, her expression hardening with each passing second. The room seemed to hold its breath as she absorbed the information, connecting dots that transformed confusion into clarity. Derek Wilson worked for Lambert Financial for 6 years before joining us 3 weeks ago, Victoria finally said, her voice dangerously calm. The same Thomas Lambert who tried to block our expansion into commercial lending last year. The same Thomas Lambert who told the banking commission I was too emotional to lead a major financial institution. She tapped the tablet screen. And these emails confirm he's been quietly acquiring shares in Meridian through shell companies. Derek isn't just some arrogant manager, he's Lambert's plant. Victoria stood, walking to the window. Below, the city pulsed with afternoon traffic, thousands of lives intersecting, most unaware of the power plays happening in towers like this one. She remembered standing in this same spot 12 years ago, when Meridian was a struggling regional bank she'd mortgaged everything to acquire. The constant battle for respect in an industry dominated by men like Lambert and Wilson, men who saw her as an anomaly, a disruption to their comfortable boys' club. They want to discredit me, she continued, turning back to her team. Create incidents, spread rumors about my stability, my competence. Make our clients nervous. Drive down our stock price until Lambert can launch a hostile takeover. Her voice carried no anger, only cool analysis. Starting with humiliating me in my own bank was just their first move. Marcus leaned forward, his expression grim. We should fire Wilson immediately, expose Lambert to the board. No. Victoria's interruption was soft but definitive. That's exactly what they expect. A public confrontation they can spin as feminine hysteria. A slight smile played at her lips. Besides, I've suspected something like this for months. Why do you think I had security protocols upgraded last quarter? Why did we quietly move those vulnerable clients to new account structures? Realization dawned on her executives' faces as Victoria returned to her seat, opening her laptop. Gentlemen, they think they're playing chess. We've been playing a different game entirely. With a few keystrokes, she pulled up a document on the room's display screen, a complex organizational chart showing Lambert's businesses, investments, and vulnerabilities. Areas highlighted in blue represented points where Meridian had already established strategic positions without Lambert's knowledge. Lambert believes I built this company on luck and connections, Victoria said, tracing a pattern across the display. He never understood what it means to build something from nothing, to be underestimated at every turn. Her finger stopped on a particular node in the chart, Lambert's newest venture, a fintech startup heavily leveraged with debt that Meridian now indirectly controlled. While he was planning this little scheme with Derek Wilson, I've been acquiring the debt instruments for his latest project through our international subsidiaries. Victoria closed her laptop, her expression serene yet formidable. For now, we let Derek Wilson believe his plan is working. We let Lambert think he's winning. She glanced at her watch, the antique Cartier that had been her first purchase when Meridian turned its first profit. Janet, reschedule tomorrow's meetings. I'll be making an appearance at the downtown branch. If Mr. Wilson wants to see the CEO's identification so badly, I think it's time he got his wish. The quarterly shareholders meeting buzzed with tension as Victoria Reeves entered the grand conference room at Meridian's headquarters. Hushed whispers followed her procession down the center aisle, the rumors of her unstable behavior at the downtown branch having spread through the financial community like wildfire. Victoria noted Thomas Lambert seated in the third row, his silver hair catching the light, expression carefully neutral though his eyes gleamed with poorly concealed triumph. 2 seats away sat Derek Wilson, looking uncomfortable in his new role as unwitting spectator. Victoria took her position at the podium with the poise that had earned her the nickname, the Ice Queen, among competitors. Good morning, she began, her voice clear and unwavering. Before we discuss our record-breaking quarter, I'd like to address the incident some of you may have heard about. A ripple of surprise moved through the audience. They hadn't expected her to acknowledge it so directly. Lambert shifted in his seat, a momentary flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. Yes, I was denied a transaction at one of our branches by a manager who didn't recognize me, Victoria continued, allowing a self-deprecating smile. Perhaps I should visit our branches more often. The calculated vulnerability elicited sympathetic laughter, diffusing the tension Lambert had carefully cultivated. Victoria pressed a discreet button on her wristwatch, activating the recording devices her security team had installed throughout the room. As Victoria guided the meeting through Meridian's impressive financial performance, she carefully laid her trap. She announced a new security audit across all branches to ensure consistency in our customer experience. The proposal required board approval, meaning Lambert would be forced to either support a measure that would expose his plant or publicly oppose reasonable security measures. She watched him squirm, then reluctantly raise his hand in support. And now I'd like to introduce our newest branch manager, Derek Wilson, who will be implementing these measures at our downtown location. The spotlight swung unexpectedly to Derek, whose face flushed as he was called to the stage. Victoria's team had prepared questions designed to reveal his limited knowledge of Meridian's procedures, questions any legitimate manager would easily answer. Before I go on, I would really appreciate it if you give this video a like, click the subscribe button down below. It would really encourage me to create more videos for you. Thank you so much. Alright, let's continue. Derek stumbled through his responses, sweating visibly under the attention. I'm still getting up to speed on some of Meridian's unique protocols, he finished lamely. Victoria thanked him with perfect courtesy, but the damage was done. Several board members were now watching him with suspicion, wondering how such an unprepared manager had been hired. During the lunch break, Victoria strategically positioned herself near enough to Lambert and Derek to activate the directional microphone concealed in her sapphire brooch. She's making us look like fools, Derek hissed. Lambert's response was cold, stay the course. The board's already questioning her judgment for hiring incompetents like you. Our people will make their move at tomorrow's private session. Victoria mingled with key shareholders, subtly reinforcing her vision for Meridian, while her team quietly gathered evidence. By session's end, she had secured additional allies on the board without Lambert realizing the significance of these seemingly casual conversations. Her security chief confirmed they'd captured multiple damning exchanges between Lambert and his accomplices. The final presentation featured Meridian's revolutionary new banking app, a project Victoria had personally championed despite Lambert's opposition months earlier. Now, with user numbers exceeding projections by 200%, even Lambert's allies couldn't deny its success. Victoria used this momentum to propose an expansion of the digital banking division, a move that would further secure her position and dilute Lambert's growing influence. As the meeting concluded, Victoria caught Lambert's confident wink to Derek across the room, exactly as her hidden camera captured the exchange. The two men believed they were on the verge of victory, unaware that every interaction was building Victoria's case against them. She accepted congratulations with gracious nods, her expression revealing nothing of the satisfaction she felt as Lambert approached. Impressive recovery, Victoria, he said, voice dripping with condescension. Though I heard the board has some concerns about management they'd like to discuss tomorrow. She met his gaze steadily, allowing herself one small smile. I'm looking forward to it, Thomas. I think tomorrow will bring clarity for everyone involved. The subtle emphasis on everyone was lost on him as he walked away, already rehearsing his victory speech for what he believed would be her final day as CEO. The emergency board meeting convened at 7 the following morning, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. Victoria had arrived an hour early, conferring quietly with her legal team while Lambert's allies filed in, their expressions a mixture of solemnity and poorly concealed excitement. Thomas Lambert entered last, followed closely by Derek Wilson, who lingered near the door like a reluctant understudy thrust suddenly onto the main stage. This meeting has been called to address concerns about the leadership of Meridian Financial, began Howard Frost, the board's eldest member and Lambert's longtime golf partner. His voice carried the practiced gravity of someone who believed he was making financial history. Ms. Reeves, serious questions have been raised about recent management decisions and the overall direction of this institution. Victoria noted how he avoided her title, not CEO Reeves, but Ms. Reeves, a subtle undermining tactic she had encountered countless times before. Lambert stood, straightening his bespoke suit with the flourish of a matador preparing for the kill. Fellow board members, it pains me to say this, but Meridian requires new leadership. Under Victoria's tenure, we've seen erratic behavior, questionable hiring practices, and an increasingly unstable management style. He nodded toward Derek, who produced a folder of apparently damning evidence. Mr. Wilson, who bravely came forward despite intimidation, has documented several concerning incidents. Victoria remained perfectly still, her posture relaxed as she listened to Lambert enumerate her supposed failures. Each accusation was calculated to play on gendered perceptions. She was too emotional about customer service standards, irrationally resistant to certain partnerships, dangerously ambitious in her expansion plans. The strategy was transparent to Victoria. Paint her as the stereotype of the unstable female leader, in over her head. When Lambert finally concluded his theatrical performance, the boardroom fell silent. All eyes turned to Victoria, who hadn't taken a single note during the entire presentation. She allowed the silence to linger for 3 precisely counted seconds before rising. "Thank you, Thomas, for that fascinating fiction," she said, her voice calm and measured. "Before we vote on my leadership, I believe there are some facts the board should consider." Victoria nodded to her assistant, who distributed sealed folders to each board member. "Please open these now," she instructed. The sound of breaking seals echoed through the room as Lambert's confident smile began to falter. Inside each folder was a comprehensive dossier, bank records showing Lambert's secret acquisition of Meridian shares through shell companies, transcripts of conversations between Lambert and Derek plotting to undermine her, and sworn statements from staff who had been pressured to report false concerns about Victoria's management. "What you're looking at is evidence of a coordinated attempt to manipulate this board and seize control of Meridian Financial," Victoria explained, activating the room's presentation screen. Email exchanges between Lambert and Derek appeared, time-stamped and authenticated. "Mr. Wilson was hired specifically to create incidents that would call my leadership into question. Yesterday's shareholders' meeting was recorded, including a rather interesting lunch conversation." The color drained from Lambert's face as his own voice filled the room. "The board's already questioning her judgment. Our people will make their move at tomorrow's private session." Derek began edging toward the door, but Victoria's security chief stepped forward, blocking his exit. Several board members were already flipping through the evidence, expressions hardening as they realized how thoroughly they'd been manipulated. "But the most interesting document is on page 12, Victoria continued, her voice never rising despite the tension crackling through the room. While Thomas was distracted with his little coup attempt, Meridian International Holdings, a subsidiary I established last year, was acquiring a controlling interest in Lambert Financial." She allowed herself the smallest of smiles. "As of 9 o'clock last night, Thomas, I am effectively your employer." The boardroom erupted in chaos. Lambert lurched to his feet, face contorted with rage. "This is impossible. You're lying." His carefully cultivated persona shattered as he slammed his fist against the table, sending water glasses toppling. The contrast between his uncontrolled fury and Victoria's composed demeanor only reinforced the truth of her revelation. Victoria waited for the commotion to subside before delivering her final blow. "I'm calling for an immediate vote of confidence in the current leadership of Meridian Financial. Those in favor of continuing under my direction." One by one, hands raised, even those who had arrived as Lambert's allies. The evidence was irrefutable, the betrayal too blatant to ignore. As the unanimous vote was recorded, Victoria turned to Lambert, whose career was disintegrating before his eyes. "And my first order of business will be reviewing the employment status of Mr. Derek Wilson." 3 days later, Victoria Reeves approached the downtown branch of Meridian Financial, this time flanked by Marcus Chun and 2 members of the board's audit committee. The morning sun glinted off the building's glass facade, reflecting Victoria's composed expression as automatic doors parted before her. The lobby fell silent as she entered, employees freezing mid-task as recognition rippled through the space. Behind the teller counter, faces turned toward the manager's office where Derek Wilson remained unaware of his visitors. "Good morning," Victoria greeted the nearest teller with warm professionalism. "Would you please inform Mr. Wilson that the CEO would like to speak with him?" The young woman's eyes widened as she hurried to the frosted glass door, knocking tentatively before disappearing inside. Through the translucent barrier, Victoria could see Derek's silhouette rise abruptly from his desk, his posture stiffening as the teller presumably delivered the message. Derek emerged moments later, his complexion ashen beneath a thin veneer of professional courtesy. "Ms. Reeves," he stammered, eyes darting between her and the imposing figures accompanying her. "This is unexpected." His hands fidgeted with his tie as he attempted to regain composure. The branch had grown preternaturally quiet, every employee and customer watching the unfolding drama. "Mr. Wilson," Victoria replied, her voice carrying throughout the hushed lobby. "I'd like to make a withdrawal, please. The same amount as before, $25,000. She presented her identification and platinum card with deliberate precision, placing them on the counter between them. "I trust there won't be any irregularities with my account today?" Derek's hands trembled visibly as he processed the transaction, acutely aware of the audit committee members documenting his every move. The same withdrawal that he had denied with smug condescension days earlier, he now executed with mechanical efficiency. No questions about verification, no insinuations about her identity. When he finished counting out the cash, Victoria slid the neat stack into her handbag without bothering to recount it. "Thank you, Mr. Wilson," Victoria said, maintaining steady eye contact. "Now, I'd like to introduce you to our audit committee. They'll be conducting a comprehensive review of this branch's practices, with particular focus on demographic patterns and service denials and account verifications." She gestured to the stone-faced committee members. "They'll be occupying your office for the remainder of the day. You can use the employee break room to complete your exit paperwork." Derek's facade finally cracked. "You can't do this," he hissed, voice low but desperate. "Lambert promised me protection." He said this was a guaranteed stepping stone to executive level. He stopped abruptly, realizing too late that he was confessing in front of witnesses. Victoria merely raised an eyebrow, allowing his own words to hang in the air between them. "As of yesterday afternoon, Thomas Lambert is no longer affiliated with any Meridian Financial institutions or subsidiaries," Victoria informed him, removing a sealed envelope from her briefcase. "This contains notification that your employment has been terminated, effective immediately. It also includes documentation of how your actions violated federal banking regulations regarding discriminatory practices." She placed it beside his nameplate. "The regulatory agencies have been notified. They'll be contacting you directly." Before Derek could respond, Victoria turned to address the gathered employees. Meridian Financial was founded on the principle that everyone deserves equal access to financial services and opportunities. Starting next week, this branch will undergo restructuring. All staff will participate in mandatory diversity and inclusion training. Her voice softened. "Most of you provide exceptional service every day. This is about ensuring that standard applies to everyone who walks through our doors." 6 months later, Victoria stood at the podium of Meridian's new Women in Finance headquarters, addressing the inaugural class of female executives selected for the leadership program she had established. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she could see the downtown branch, now thriving under new management. The former Lambert Financial building was visible in the distance, its signage recently changed to reflect its new status as Meridian's Innovation Center. Before I go on, I would really appreciate it if you give this video a like, click the subscribe button down below. It would really encourage me to create more videos for you. Thank you so much. Alright, let's continue. "The hardest signature I ever made wasn't on a merger document or acquisition agreement," Victoria told the assembled women, their faces bright with ambition and determination. "It was signing the original loan to buy a struggling bank when everyone said I was reaching beyond my capabilities." She smiled, gesturing to the city skyline that now bore the imprint of her vision. Sometimes the most powerful signature isn't on a check, it's on a vision for change. And the most satisfying victory isn't defeating those who underestimated you, but creating a world where fewer people will face those same barriers. As applause filled the room, Victoria caught sight of her reflection in the window. Not just a CEO who had triumphed over adversity, but an architect of a new financial landscape where stories like hers might someday become relics of the past.